They didn't just all of a sudden come up with a constitution. You know, they already had a constitution in mind in case this didn't go right. We already have a constitution. They already had a constitution in mind. They just hadn't put it together. You know, they wrote it in 1787, if I'm not mistaken. In 1788, they ratified, and in 1789, they put the Constitution into play. And this became a constitutional government. Now, this is how the government worked. They created a government, and inside that government, they grew a federal government. See, what they did was they got these two entities. You know how many? You got 1913 and 1928? They got the same thing we got. You know, they got this one, and then they created, out of this one, they created this one. And out of this government, they created what? Your judicial branch, your legislative branch, and your executive branch. They created that out of this. So now, here's your federal government over here. And so you're looking at the federal government, but you forgot we the people. See, the people created the Constitution. And then the people also out of the Constitution created a federal government. And so you have to go back to the beginning, just like the prophet takes us back to the land of Canaan. You have to go all the way back to the beginning. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, ensure domestic tranquility and all other stuff that it says, that you have to go back. Because if you don't understand what happened, then you don't understand how to be a part of what happened. See, because what the prophet says, the Constitution, one of the greatest documents ever written. Why? Because everything came out of the Constitution. Everything came out of the Constitution. It all came out of this document. The founding fathers, they created this document. They put it together. And don't think Moors didn't have nothing to do with it. You know, don't think that it's all, nah. When you look at pictures of George Washington, who do you see? You see a bunch of brothers around. What they got on their head? Turbans and fezzes. There ain't no Negro, blacks, and colors wearing no turbans and fezzes. No, those are Moors. Those are the brothers that's showing them how to set up governments. Why? Because we've been setting up governments since the beginning of time. This ain't the first time that a government has been set up. I mean, if you do your research, they got anarchies, democracies. They got all these different forms of governments that's in existence. So this is not the first time that this type of government was in existence. It's just that it's the first time that the type of constitution that was written. That's why the prophet say this is the greatest document that was ever written, the Constitution of the United States. And it is, because what? Out of this document grew many. And then, you know, you got the state governments and all that stuff coming. I mean, if you know that Washington, D.C., one of the first capital of the United States was New York. And then they moved to Philadelphia. Then from Philadelphia to D.C. D.C. is called a District of Columbia. It's not even a state. It's the District of Columbia. You know, and they have a mayor in there, but the mayor has no power. Why? Because it's federal. You know, the mayor, I mean, you the mayor of the people. You got, the mayor is not like the mayor in Houston. The mayor of there has to get his money from the federal government. The mayor of here get his money from the city. You know, your city taxes and this and that. That's how he gets his money. And if he needs some help, the federal government help. But the mayor of D.C., his money comes from the federal government. Why? Because you're sitting on federal land. So there's a difference in the way that they have the government set up. The 13 colonies, you know, that's the United States. The 13 colonies is the United States of America. The prophet knew what he was doing when he went to New York, New Jersey. He knew what he was doing when he came from Newark, New Jersey and went to Illinois. He knew what he was doing. I mean, the land of Lincoln, Emancipation Proclamation. You know, the prophet knew what he was doing. Why? Because Allah sent him. You showed me another brother that had this kind of idea. You got to be sent from Allah. I mean, because to this day, there's no brother. We got a lot of brothers and sisters that's in some type of political power. They got some type of voice. Is any of them telling me and you that we not Negro, blacks, and color? Black lives matter. You know, they not teaching me and you. They not teaching me and you. What they doing is, these brothers are getting money, man. These brothers are getting paid. They don't live down here with me and you. You don't even know where your representative lives, because they don't live among you. You represent me, but you don't live with me? Yeah. This makes no sense to me. I mean, if you was truly my representative, then you would stay somewhere in my area. You done moved out. Man, I represent you, but I'm up in Katy. Humble, further up in there where you can't get. I'm in a gated community. Why? Because I don't trust the people that I represent. Yeah, I don't trust the people I represent. I get honest to Sheila Jackson Lee, and the reason why I get honest to her, because if you call her with an issue, she show up for funerals, and she's been in office forever. But I mean, I don't know if it's 100% true, but they tell me the sister never wrote a bill. What you doing in Congress that long for? You ain't serving us. Because if you come to my house and I done prepared food for you, and I'm gonna serve you. Why? That's why I invited you. Because I'm here to serve you, and that's what your mayors is supposed to be serving you. Your city council is supposed to be serving you. But you know who the mayor of Houston works for? He works for the city of Houston. Your city council works for the city of Houston. I mean, we're gonna pave a street, but that's what I pay taxes for. I mean, do the stuff you're supposed to do. Paving the street, I pay taxes for you to pave this street. I shouldn't have to come to a town hall meeting to tell you that my street raggedy. You the mayor of the city. You're supposed to know my street raggedy. You a city council in this district. You're supposed to know certain stuff. These people are not here to serve the people. They here to serve the city that they are head of, or the state that they're in control of, or the United States. I'm here to serve the United States. That's what I'm here to serve. I'm not here to serve, whatever's better for the country. That's my objective. My objective is not for individuals, and it ain't never been for individuals. I mean, you just don't get that. But I know that most of us do, because if you from where I'm from, you know that my neighborhood didn't get no better. It's death and decay. My neighborhood has died. I can't even afford to stay in the poor neighborhood that I grew up in. I can't afford to stay there no more. Why? Because they moving us out. Probably say if I get my people to think, they can save themselves. So you know what I'm doing? I'm saving Russellville. Why? Because I'm a thinking Moorish American. The Moors had a hand in all of this now. I'm talking about, now the Declaration of Independence, what declaration means, that we declaring our independence from whom? From Great Britain. That's who we declaring our independence from. We declaring our independence from Europe. Now, in this what we call the United States, which they call Americas, it was called America. Now, we talking about North, South, and Central America before the Great. It was called America. Now, what happened is the French came over here. Christopher Columbus wasn't the first person on the land. He was one of the first people in the islands. He came over here 4 times. But the Portuguese came, the French came, the Spaniards came. The Spaniards are with Christopher Columbus. They together. And then Christopher Columbus started coming for somebody else too. He didn't just come for the Spaniards. After a few trips, Christopher Columbus came over here for somebody else. And these people over here, once they came over here and got themselves together, now you got to remember, they got their independence from Great Britain now, because Great Britain owned what? They own that property that they call the 13 colonies. Great Britain didn't have no beef with these people that's called the Confederacy, because this Confederacy was French and Spain owned. It was French and Spaniard, and also Canada, which they speak French today. All this was French owned. Great Britain had a claim to what they call the 13 colonies. And so that's who they was fighting for their independence for. And once they won their independence in 1776, they won their independence, and then they came on with it. But you notice that the Constitution didn't come into play until what? 1776, let's just say it didn't come into play for like maybe 12 or 13 years later. Somewhere from there it came into play in 12 or 13 years later. But after they got their independence, they created a government. They in New York. They created a government which, it didn't work as well as they thought it was. And so then they come up with the Continental Congress, which John Hanson was the first president of Continental Congress. Everything fell apart in about 11 months. So they say this ain't gonna work. And when this didn't work, then they say, when we're gonna create this union. The union, we still members of a union. Now, the union is made up of 13 colonies. I ain't gonna run the names of the colonies off, but they made up of 13 colonies. And the 13 colonies became the United States. And then as other states, they start becoming a part of it. Let's get back to the Declaration. They declared their independence from Great Britain because Great Britain was taxing them. Great Britain was the boss. No, I'm good. Great Britain was taxing them in such a manner that they like, why are we paying them? And so they fought Great Britain. And they fought Great Britain. And they fought Great Britain hard. And finally, it was over with. But me and you think it was over with. You know, the war ended, but the relationship never ended. The relationship between the United States and Great Britain is still a relationship. You know, it's just that the United States is more powerful than Great Britain. You know, people are more fearful of the United States than they are of Great Britain. And so, you know, it's like, I don't know, I think they call it a sister, or they call them brothers and sisters or something to that effect. But me and you, by us not understanding history, law, and how things go, we just, when somebody tells us something, we go for it. You know, what I like about the Europeans is they keep impeccable records of everything. And they keep impeccable records of everything. They keep impeccable records of the lies that they tell. You know, the deceit that they keep impeccable records. They create a fiction. Y'all watch TV? And you know that, you know, my favorite is Denzel Washington. I like Denzel Washington, you know, because whatever role he plays, man, he the best at it. You know, man on fire. I mean, when he's the best at it. When he play a role, Denzel puts all up into it. But you know, Denzel Washington has probably never killed anybody in his life. Denzel Washington has probably never shot anybody in his life. But see, Hollywood, you know, it ain't what you think it is. You know, Hollywood is everywhere. You know, they create a story and they backdrop the story and they write the story all the way to the end and then they bring it up. And then me and you follow the story until the story ends, but we don't go beyond the story. We stay within the bubble. Man, you stay in the bubble. We don't go outside the bubble to find out, whoa, this ain't how this happened. This is not how this transpired. Noble Drew Ali, what we love about Noble Drew Ali is, Noble Drew Ali will take you from 1928 all the way back to the beginning of time. That way you can't miss nothing. What Noble Drew Ali does is he makes you see everything for what it is, and he makes you use your thinking, your reasoning, your understanding, and your common sense. He makes you use that. You know, he makes you see that, whoa, this don't seem right. You know, one of the biggest things that gets me is that they saying that, man, we got some dinosaur bones before humans was in existence. Now, if you can find a dinosaur bone, and we talking about right here in the United States, that y'all had slaves over here in the 1500s, and y'all was still bringing them over here in the 1700s, and ain't no slave ships. You know, 'cause they put everything in a museum. They got a dinosaur. They got a whole Tyrannosaurus. All the bones, his teeth, they got his jaw, they got his tail, they got all of this stuff. And it was buried. Brothers, I'm gonna tell you something, I did it before. I dug a hole about 9 years ago and put some chicken bones in it. In my house where I live right now. And I marked the spot. And I dug them things up 9 years ago. They wasn't there no more. Because I didn't put them in nothing protective. I just throw them in the ground. When a dinosaur dies, he just die where he at. And then it covers up. And then you go in there and you get a bone that ain't brittle, ain't nothing wrong with this bone. Nothing. It don't make no sense to me. You know, and like I said, I ain't saying that dinosaurs don't exist. I'm saying they don't exist. I'm saying that, you know, what Noble Drew Ali is teaching me is, hey man, Russell, use your common sense when you're dealing with certain stuff. Man knows naught by being told. Quit letting people tell you something. You know, you got to show me that there was a slave ship. You know, and they have no slave ships. They have no slave ships in no museums, nowhere. So if they don't have no slave ship, then they probably didn't transport no slaves. Now, you know, it's Hollywood. You know, I mean, because I can write a story. And if I say this, repeat the story over and over and over and over, and I say the same things to you over and over and over and over and over and over again, eventually you're going to start repeating it. Why? Because I done said it 10,000 times to you, so now you believe what I said, and so you're going to start repeating it. You know, you start repeating it, and then somebody else start repeating it, then all of a sudden you got 100 million people repeating the same thing. So now everybody think it's true because you're repeating the lie. Noble Dry teaches me and you who we are and what we're capable of. If you notice on our nationality card, say you're a citizen of the USA, you know, and USA represents something, the United States represents something, the United States of America represents something. One of the reasons why the prophet tells us to get a good European education, so when we see abbreviations, and we don't mistake the abbreviation for what it ain't abbreviated for, and when he says the United States, one of them is fictitious. You know, it's just like the corporation. You know, a corporation is created by somebody. You know, like the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1913 created the corporation, the corporation Moorish Science Temple of America of 1928, and they created it for a purpose. The United States created the United States. The United States of America created the United States for a purpose, and the purpose was that now we're going to create a federal government out of this here. Now, a lot of this stuff is not, it's in writing somewhere, but a lot of this stuff you don't get. Allah reveals certain stuff to you about how certain stuff is set up and how certain stuff is done. But it's only set up because what? The Prophet Noble Drew Ali revealed it to us. When you read Noble Drew Ali, when you read his literature and his warnings, and it's certain stuff that he tells you in this literature, because Noble Drew Ali didn't come here to kick it. You know, first, you know, he ain't come here to kick it. You know, Noble Drew Ali was a prophet. And he come here to prophesize and to tell you of things that was, things that is, and what's gonna be. That's what his responsibility was. Allah sent him here to tell us what was, what is, and what's gonna be. And he did all of that. He told us what was, what is, and what's gonna be. And he says Noble Drew Ali says a whole lot of different things, but there's nothing that he didn't say that wasn't real life. You know, Noble Drew Ali didn't hang on the counter, play dominoes, and kick it. Noble Drew Ali came in for a purpose, and he served his purpose. So now, when the United States was created, something else was born out of the United States, and that which was born out of the United States, it was born for the protection of this. You know, it's born for we're gonna protect this here by creating this here. So it's like let's say, the first McDonald's. We create the first McDonald's and we get everything right. It's the first McDonald's. Now we're going to create another McDonald's. What's the other McDonald's? It's a replica. It ain't the same thing. It's a replica. Okay, it got a Big Mac in there, but it ain't the original. Because the original is here. And so, you know, I got a Big Mac, but it ain't the original. And see, me and you automatically think that it's the original because it's a Big Mac. What I'm looking at from my prophet is that you got to go back to the original. If you want the original, you have to go to the original. And so what the prophet is teaching us about citizenship is how to get back to the original. It's more than two things going on. It's always more than two things. Even in the Moorish Science Temple of America, the prophet, I mean, he's so prolific in his teachings to, if you don't catch it, it's because you ain't listening to what he tells you. The prophet tells me that, Russell, the only way you're going to understand what I'm telling you, you're going to have to change the way you think. You're going to have to change the way you view things. You're going to have to start using your thinking and your reasoning and your understanding. But you can't use your carnal nature to understand anything. The prophet says in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, he says, no finite mind can comprehend things infinite. So those things that's infinite, if I'm finite minded, I ain't going to comprehend it. I ain't going to understand it. I don't care how smart you are or how sharp you think you are, you know, or how many PhDs you got. That don't make you smart. It just means that you went to school. It don't make you smart. It means that you went to school for electronics or something, and you know how to fix electronics, but you can't fix your car. So it don't make you smart. What the prophet does is he rounds you completely, where not only can you fix your car, you can fix your computer. Not only can you fix your computer, but you can mend your fence. See, the prophet makes you everything. He makes you a carpenter, electrician. He makes you a plumber. He teaches you everything. And so when they created the United States, None of this stuff is bad intentions. They didn't do anything to harm anybody. They did everything to protect the country. They didn't create this stuff to harm anybody. They say, hey, we got to protect the country. So what we're going to do is we create the United States, and out of the United States, we're going to come up with the United States, the fictitious. We're going to come up with a corporation. Because most people think that the first United States was incorporated. It's the second one that was incorporated. The Moorish Science Temple of America in 1913. The 1928 was incorporated. So out of one was born something else. And it was born for what? To protect the movement. And that's what they did over here. They protecting it. So you got two. Now, what are you a member of? The prophet made me a member of the United States of America. He made me a member of that. He didn't make me a member of the corporation, because you hear people talking about your name, capital, and the Social Security card, and they go all in, and they be, I mean, you know, and I'm a sovereign citizen. I mean, we go all into stuff. Why? Because somebody whispered to us and said, hey man, so-and-so, you a corporation. I'm a person. I'm not a corporation, you know. And no matter what they put on paper, you know, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. I'm a Moorish American, and I'm only answering to a Moorish American. And by me only answering to a Moorish American, everybody knows what I'm a member of. You know, everybody knows that as a Moorish American, as having a nationality, I'm a first-class citizen. I don't care what color my skin is. The tone of my skin does not determine the contents of my character. I'm a Moorish American. And so by me being a Moorish American, I'm automatically not associated with this, but associated with this. I have a different class of citizenship. You know, they have different classes of citizenships over here. You know, if you go into citizenship, you know, citizenships with all the small caps mean something. Citizenship with the large caps means something. It does mean something, but it don't mean what people think that it means. And I ain't gonna tell y'all what it means. Now, we ain't gonna, you know, if you don't believe anything that we saying, what we saying is, man, you go, everything that I'm saying, you go check it out for yourself. Yeah. Everything that I'm saying that the prophet taught, you go check it out for yourself. And if I'm not telling you the truth, then I'll never tell you nothing else. You know, you got to believe in something. Why not believe in something different? You know, and I ain't saying come join the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'm saying go check out what the prophet said. Everything that the prophet taught me, and the reason why I'm able to tell you is because he taught me. All this what I'm talking about 30 years ago, man, you be sitting here listening to a babbling idiot. You know, I didn't know. You know, but I admit to myself that I didn't know. You know, I'm the first one to admit that I didn't know. I mean, I think the Mo was telling me something about the Electoral College. He got me to thinking, let me go and read and check this out. You know, because the prophet said, as man unfolds, as God unfolds. Man's God today, tomorrow's not God. Yeah, the prophet is so prolific in his teaching. He said the wise man doubted often and changed his mind. He say the fool is obstinate. He knows of all things but his own ignorance. He say the fool ain't gonna change. He say, but the wise man gonna think about it, because the Mo was adamant about what he was telling me. I say, oh man, let me go check this out, Mo. You know, because even though I got a whole lot of information, I don't have it all. But I have enough to know that I'm not Negro, black, or color. I got all of that.